Good evening. I'm Dan Fitzpatrick, stockmarketmentor.com, and I want to look at Allibaba today. I think, it's a couple days late, but I think Allibaba is still shortable. If only just to complete the pattern, 5, 6 points maybe to get back to the 20-day moving average, or until the 20-day moving average rallies up to catch the price. This stock, I'm just looking at this. It really kind of doesn't move down 4 days in a row. If you look at it, it's like 3 days down, 3 days down, a little bit of a rally, et cetera, all the way up. It's just a stock that you really can't keep down. Now, one time that's a little bit different was back here when the company last reported earnings, right? I think that was earnings. The reason I'm saying that is because I know Jack Ma had been at a conference or something, and he just gave this ungodly bullish outlook on the company, and the stock jumped, and it settled in a little bit, and it never really came back. So here we are. Pardon me for forgetting whether this was actually on earnings too. Seems like it is. But anyway, so the stock gapped up here. It got really extended, kind of like it is if you just want to look at the 50-day moving average. Stock was up about 20%. Here, stock went up about 25% above the 50-day moving average. So when it gets really extended on a steep move, I'm not talking about a move where the stock just kind of starts to it just kind of gets a little bit higher and then the 50-day moving average starts to move up and it's all good. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when the stock makes a big move up, then it tends to pull back more. Here, this wasn't a big move up. It was just the next leg higher. It just kind of drifts sideways. Here, I would say this was kind of a big move up, and you can tell that by the Bollinger Bands. You see how they were pretty narrow here. I don't really think of bands that are on stocks that are not really trading sideways. I don't really think of them as much of a quote squeeze, even though the dynamics are a little bit the same. But whereas I'll look at this where the stock's been trading sideways for a couple months, really tight Bollinger Bands, that's a real bullish move. When it comes out of here, then that's a really good time to buy. Here, when a stock busts out like this, this could be you ride the bull for 8 seconds, and then the stock pulls back. Here, I think we're getting the same thing. So I think you could short Alibaba now and make a little bit more money. But after 3 days, again, I'll say it, I don't see it moving up to 180 anytime soon because it just looks tired, and we're seeing volume that's increased here. Last couple of days, Friday and then today, above average volume. So we're seeing a pickup in institutional selling. But I want to look at the hourly chart and see if, we could have caught this as far as getting out of it if you're long, caught it a little bit earlier. And what I'm looking at here is a 60-minute chart. And we're looking at the VWAP, the volume weighted average price, right? That's based on the volume. What's the average price of a stock trading at any given time? And so you can see here on the way up, the stock would move below the VWAP some, but then ultimately it would move back up. The VWAP is in an uptrend. And when the stock did move below it briefly, buying took it higher. So if you're just kind of looking at time spent above water and time spent below water, not a lot of time was spent underwater here. It's all generally been moving higher. Okay, well then something happens here on the 24th. Now let's go back and look on the daily chart and see what day the 24th was. My bet was it's that one, Thursday. So now let's go back to the hour. Okay, something happens on the 24th. Rather than the stock regaining, staying above water, it actually traded down, and we can, you can always do all this hindsight observation and trade every chart perfectly when you're looking back. Everybody's a technician, fewer traders. But here, the VWAP was moving sideways as it had done here. It kind of did that pretty much every day. And guess why it does that every day? I'll tell you why. Because most of the volume takes place in the morning. So if the stock trades higher, it's going to pull the VWAP up. And then as the volume tapers off during the middle of the day, then the price movement has less and less impact on the VWAP, because the VWAP is literally the average price of a stock based on volume. And so if most of the volume happens in the morning, that's most of the influence. The rest of the time is just kind of marking time. And so you're going to see this flatlining virtually every day in any stock. What really matters is this transition. When a stock moves from a, gosh, it's back to the VWAP, it's time to buy, to, gosh, it's below the VWAP and I don't want to buy. Suddenly it's, gosh, it's back up to the VWAP and I want to sell. So this actually gives you a pretty good line in the sand of what the stock is doing and whether there are sellers or buyers in a stock. And right now, the VWAP on the 60-minute chart, the VWAP is acting as resistance. So as we look at this right now, and this will come down tomorrow unless the stock gaps up here. VWAP will come down tomorrow just as a function of the stock opening below where it is right now on pretty high volume. But right now about 169 is where resistance is. So let's say you're shorting this stock right here. You're going to have a buy stop up here. Shoot, you can even put it up above 170. You're risking 3%. So you've got more upside as far as profit by shorting the stock than you do downside as far as a loss, as long as you're just covering, have a buy stop in. So anyway, that's kind of how you look at the transition in a stock like Alibaba. And the key is, because I don't want you to over apply this to every chart, the key is that the stock is extended in the first place, that you can clearly see an uptrending VWAP and buying on each pullback to the VWAP. We got to see the buying on each pullback to the VWAP. If we don't see that, and by the way, the stock price can't go backwards. If we don't see that, then it doesn't really matter. It's not something that we want to trade. And then once it breaks down, then we want to see selling at the VWAP. Okay, that's it. Members, we're going to go for the gold tonight.